All right, welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. Continuing on talking about the MCU, we are joined again with Mike, as always, and Lauren joining us today as well.
So
Lauren,
it's
thank
two
you.
guys and a gal
And a stack of
and a
comics.
stack of comics.
We're
All
turning our
right.
channel name into like one of those old, what was it? There's there two guys and a girl in a pizza place or something like that in the 90s or something like that. We got to
Oh,
copyright infringement.
well, I guess we'll be fine as long as we don't bring pizza into it.
Hey, we
Um,
got pizza out there in the kitchen.
Wanted
Just
to talking a little bit about the MCU. So we talked about some of the kind of the overall state of Marvel in our last video, kind of where we all think it's at. We're hearing a lot of rumors, a lot of things that are popping up. Spoilers for some things, but we know that the X-Men have been spotted in the post-credit scene for the Marvel, so we know the X-Men are coming. Mike bringing up, as always, one of the classic comics there for X-Men. We know Hugh Jackman's coming back. We know there's a Deadpool 3 that's supposedly set in the MCU. We also know there's a lot of rumors with the Fantastic Four. So for this, I think it's interesting because Fantastic Four probably and X-Men probably should have been the first thing out of the gate after Endgame, but it appears they're coming now. So I think for Mike and for Lauren, for you guys, what's your opinion on them finally coming to the MCU? Do you think these characters are enough that it could turn around what certainly seems to be a Brandon spiral with the MCU?
I'm trepidatious because of what has gone before in the interim after Endgame. I don't know how they're going to handle these characters. Reed and I did a thing recently about the original Fantastic Four movies, not the original one that never got released, but
Early 2000s, Jessica,
yeah, I love those movies, and I think they did well. And of course, the X-Men, they did it really, really well. You know, so I'm kind of trepidatious. What about you, Lauren?
Oh, Fantastic Four, I have always loved. That was probably one of the first comic books of Marvel that I truly got into. I was absolutely into the Marvel family. Loved the Fantastic Four. Johnny Storm was my hero for the longest time. I wanted the Human Torch's fire abilities, everything. I loved him. And I can remember being on my computer in those early 2000s, the family computer, pulling up dial up, waiting anxiously to see that first trailer of that movie when it was coming out. You know, I'm like 13 or 14 whenever it came out, and I was ecstatic out of my mind when I watched that trailer. And it still brings me a lot of joy. Now, don't get me wrong, the superhero movies have come a long way from the early 2000s, and rightfully so. Though some of the recent movies, they kind of look like they're kind of making a reverse call and acting and looking like the early 2000s, but that's besides the point. If anything, those first movies did right was nailing the casting.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they were good. Storyline, but the first movie, I think, did everything pretty well. Doctor Doom could have been a little bit better, but I thought his casting was still good.
Yeah, for sure.
Second movie has a lot of the problems that we've talked about with the other ones, is where they kind of tried something new and it didn't work. The Silver Surfer was sort of Silver Surfer, not entirely. The abilities blending, that was a weird idea that didn't quite pan out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it just did not survive like the X-Men.
But how cool was it in the
Yeah.
early 2000s to have your favorite comic book on the big screen? I mean, it must have been.
No,
It
was really cool.
It was so cool. I can still remember in that trailer watching Reed's fingers come through underneath. I mean, which now looks absolutely ridiculous. But in those early 2000s,
It looked pretty good.
I just remember like going crazy sitting over that computer watching that trailer on dial-up going that looks so cool, it looks just like the comics, more like it was so exciting. And so I want that excitement again. I want it again. I didn't get it again with that reboot.
We just act like that movie didn't exist. That's Fan Four stick. It's not the Fantastic Four. We just act like that never happened.
That's
I
a
didn't
whole
ever,
nother conversation.
I never saw that one, you guys. I never saw that one.
Oh, I
It's
saw it in theaters with my brother and sister-in-law, and I came out of that movie demanding the 2.5 hours that they ate of my life. I wanted it. I wanted those hours back, and I wanted the insult to the Fantastic Four redeemed. I hated it. It was so, I was livid. I walked out of the theaters livid, angrier than any Star Wars fan coming out of the sequels. I was livid outside of that Fantastic Four movie. I just felt like part of my whole childhood just like fell right apart. But it, but again, I want that same feeling for the new rebooted Fantastic Four that I had in the early 2000s, where I felt like my comic books were coming to life. If they can revive that kind of feeling in the Marvel movies again with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, the MCU will be okay. But
See, and they got the perfect launching platforms for these two properties, right?
mm-hmm.
They could restart everything. Like, we could move away from Avengers because we're like we were talking about in the last video, you're never going to capture that lightning in the bottle, probably not again.
Right.
If you could do it with any properties, I think they got an even chance on either one of these two, Fantastic Four or X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
I think the weird thing they're doing that makes me worried. And I'll say Wolverine is my second favorite superhero, mainly because as a child I confused him with Batman, so I always wanted his action figure because I thought they were Batman action figures. And so I just always loved him as a character. And I am probably the biggest Hugh Jackman Wolverine fan you'll find. I'm thrilled he's coming back and he's in the yellow and blue costume. I've wanted to see that forever. However, my problem with that is if you're truly going to relaunch this brand, bringing back Hugh Jackman, I know Kelsey Grammer's been back as Beast in this post-credit scene that's been on there.
Okay.
And while I think those are great, how long do you really have with those characters? Probably not long. Kelsey Grammer, I think, is in his 70s.
Yes.
He was in his 50s. And so you're probably going to have to reboot anyway. And so the problem is you're going to give us, again, these versions that we love and then reboot with characters where it's going to be really hard to fill the shoes. I kind of look at it like James Bond, and I know that's my favorite film franchise ever. The first Bond movie for a new Bond is normally pretty rough because you miss the last Bond, right?
Yeah.
George Lazenby was the second Bond. He could never escape that he wasn't Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Roger Moore could not escape that he wasn't Sean Connery because Connery came back. Now, as they went along more, they got more comfortable and people accepted them in the role. I feel like forever you're casting as Wolverine, not only do you have 20 years of Wolverine as Hugh Jackman to compete with, you're going to get him back as the classic great Wolverine. And then now you got to fill in for the claws, so to speak, and launch in a Marvel Cinematic Universe that's not as good. And maybe they just won't do Wolverine, but then again, with their character roster, I feel like they really need him.
Oh yeah.
I do like the idea of bridging to the Fox X-Men characters, but it feels kind of more like a duct tape solution when you maybe just need to rebuild the whole shelf. And that kind
you're
of
on the rip the Band-Aid off now. Yeah, kind of thing. But as shaky as comic book movies are right now, maybe the higher ups, the bean counters in the movie
just need
business
the
are
quick
like,
win.
maybe we ought to, if we can get Hugh Jackman, let's get him.
I absolutely don't blame them for bringing Hugh Jackman back. I think my only worry at all, Logan to me is one of the 5 best comic book movies ever made. It was a perfect, beautiful send-off to the character. It felt like an old school Western. I
did, right?
hope they don't mess with that. And I know not everyone's a huge fan of that movie, but the box office and everything kind of showed that people liked it. It was such a beautiful send-off for him. I do worry, especially with them bringing him in Deadpool, which I will say Deadpool's not really my taste of superhero movie. I understand those are fantastically successful from a box office standpoint, and I do like Ryan Reynolds in the role. Deadpool just always seems like it's at an 11 in terms of the level it goes at, and I wish it was more like a 5 or a 6. But I get they're going to have to push that to please the fans of those. I worry what they're going to do with Wolverine in that movie in a Deadpool film, because I don't know that will handle that Wolverine returning after such a great kind of graceful ending.
So first is going to be Deadpool, right? And then
That's the only Marvel movie we have next year, I believe, on the slate is Deadpool 3.
oh, okay, so Wolverine's even further out.
Well, no, Wolverine's in Deadpool 3. He's not getting
But I
his.
mean,
in it.
The X-Men is even further out than that.
Well, yeah, and we don't have any definitive plans on X-Men at this point.
There's
We,
no
we do
script even.
know we do
No.
know
I think,
Kamala Khan is a mutant. That's the only kind of
yeah.
confirmed thing they
I
have.
think the only other thing is the reboot of the 90s, well, not reboot, but the continuation of the 90s cartoon series. I think that's the only other absolutely confirmed project that, well, currently still confirmed.
Yeah.
Everybody's
So-
excited about that cartoon.
Yes, that is very exciting, but that is still not MCU. But I'm just saying, as far as X-Men projects go, that's I believe the only other
The one
that I could think of off the top of my head that's still that still has the green light.
Are
Yeah.
they already filming Fantastic Four or
No.
no?
No,
It's there's a lot of casting rumors out there.
a lot.
Just some names that have been out there. Pedro Pascal's rumored as Reed Richards. Vanessa Kirby, who, if you've watched any of the Mission Impossible movies, she's great in those. She's rumored as Sue Storm. I can't remember the two names who are associated with Ben and Johnny yet. And I think there's an actor who was on Stranger Things, but I'm losing his name, was rumored for Johnny. And then apparently the big rumor going is that Silver Surfer will be gender swapped and be a female in the film. Those are the kind of most current rumors that have come out.
Please no.
Which really makes me mad in that I love the Silver Surfer, but what's interesting, and I think this has been a Marvel problem, period. I think it's great that Marvel wants to bring greater diversity to the screen. I think it's great that they want to bring more female characters to the screen. But doing something like the Silver Surfer thing, if they do execute it, there's a character who is a Herald of Galactus in the comics from the Silver Surfers in the 90s known as Nova, not the Nova of the Nova Corps, but
Right.
Nova, who has fire powers. She was actually in the Rise of the Silver Surfer. Frankie Ray, she's like a military character in that second movie. But she becomes a Herald of Galactus. It's a female character. That would be the character to do that with. Just put her on the screen. When you do this Silver Surfer thing, and I think Marvel's made this mistake with a lot of stuff. They did this with Taskmaster.
Oh yes.
Swaps. The thing is, you make people mad who are fans of the character. And the fact of the matter is, if Marvel's there, you can make a character like Nova just work in the Silver Surfer role. And then you don't even have to worry about that. It just is a weird, if they do that, I think it's just a weird choice. And I think it's some weird choices they've had that they've made with stuff like that.
Stay true to the source material.
Yeah,
stick to the
source material for sure.
Yes.
It's been
And-
working.
Speaking as obviously a female,
Mhm.
I can't stand it usually when they gender bend a character like this, especially to female, because for one very problematic reason. Usually the script stinks.
Yeah.
It's like they quit caring. As soon as they hit this gender bend thing, they feel like they have done their quota to get the fans in, to reach out to the diversity side of the females. Let me tell you, as a female, I love watching the men superheroes. I don't need a lot of female superheroes to feel empowered, but I especially enjoy watching men superheroes. They're gorgeous. They are, from that point of view, I enjoy it. But seriously, as also a fan of good stories, so many times when they gender bend it, I just feel like they quit with the script and they give us a half-baked story, which in a way is almost more insulting to females, because it's like, well, now that I got your attention and you feel empowered, I'm going to give you a half-baked story. Enjoy.
No,
You know,
I
so-
think that's an excellent point. It's
now
almost like
that
they
doesn't
want
happen.
the pat on the back instead of actually do it. They want the pat on the
Yes.
back where we did it, and then they don't want to actually develop the story.
Exactly. I mean, and that's exactly the way I felt with like Captain Marvel versus Black Widow. Love Scarlett Johansson. Love Black Widow. She was phenomenal. I was waiting for her Black Widow movie forever. And then they gave us Captain Marvel first. And I walked out of the theater going, you should have given me Black Widow. I wanted Black Widow. I don't care about Captain Marvel. She's like Superman. She's too flawless for me to even care about or relate to. I don't care. I watched her get stronger over the film and do that. You know, and in a way she was kind of gender bent because Captain Marvel was a replacement of Marvel, and
Yep.
even Marvel in there was gender bent. You know,
No,
so
Marvel is one of the most disrespected characters that they've.
exactly, it really was a slap in the face to Marvel too. And so I hope they don't do that to
Especially
Silver
because in the
Surfer
comics,
because
Marvel is so cool.
yeah, and I love the Silver Surfer of the comics. He looks amazing, and he was one of the best parts of the second Fantastic Four movie. I mean, the movie had a lot of problems. I'm going to say that a lot, but he was hands down the best part of that sequel movie, and he looked great. The actor was it's exactly how I would imagine him speaking from the comics and everything as a fan who read those original 1960s first encounter with Galactus and Silver Surfer and him you know, talking with them, communicating, learning about humanity, being disowned by Galactus and becoming this different superhero. He was amazing. And
No,
so
those early Silver
yeah.
Surfer comics are amazing.
Yes.
It may be sacrilege
yeah.
for some people in saying it. I think those are Stan Lee's best written books. Stan Lee's original Silver Surfer comics. I love his original Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. Nothing against
Yeah.
it. I've read those a million times. His Silver Surfer stuff, I don't know, it just seemed like that was something that really connected with Stan Lee and the
He
story.
really enjoyed that
I did.
character. Like when you see him in interviews, he talks very fondly about those Silver Surfer days. He loved to write for Silver Surfer. And when he was writing that in the late 60s, that was a time in his life when I think he was really having the most fun
Yeah.
because he
Probably.
was touring the college campuses and all the college kids were loving Marvel Comics. And so he would go on these tours to all the universities and college campuses and talk to the kids. And you know, the legend goes that they really love Silver Surfer. And so he really wrote that, I think, with renewed passion. You know, everybody knows the story of Stan Lee, how he nearly quit comics.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, he wrote the Fantastic Four and, you know, created the Marvel universe with, you know, Jack Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
But he really, you know, he had a sweet spot for Silver Surfer for sure.
And it shows.
Yeah.
So with where they're at, do you guys think it's too late for these characters to kind of save Marvel? Do you trust Marvel to come in and actually do the Fantastic Four and X-Men justice? And beyond that, do you think it's actually too late if they do?
Well, I think the timing thing, I don't know what you think, Lauren, but you know, to find out, like I've been hearing about these, and so in my mind, like I don't pay attention to all the news and I don't read all the stuff that you guys do, but I hear second and third hand that these properties are on their way. And now to find out that they don't even have scripts, I'm like, I'm just, when are these going to come out? And like, you're skipping a beat here. Like you just had a couple of flops. You would have thought these projects were a little further along and we were going to get to see Hugh Jackman in that traditional costume, like playing Wolverine, you know, and yeah, it's kind of sad. What do you think, Lauren?
I think the timing couldn't be helped for one thing because of the rights agreements with Sony.
Okay.
Sony just did not want to let them go. You know, they've been trying to get them for a while. So I think in a way that just could not be helped. But is it still too late? I'm unsure. I still have faith that those movies, if done right, could in a way maybe give the superhero movies a second wind if they're done right, or they're going to kill it dead shot between the eyes.
Yeah.
It could be dead on arrival, but I still want I want that Fantastic Four movie. I wanted an MCU Fantastic Four movie. I still want it. If I could get the original four casted for it too, even Chris Evans bring them back, get variant Johnny Storm, I'd still be happy. But I know, but you know, there's still possibilities because Johnny and Spider-Man are best friends. You could have a little bit of a connection there. Spider-Man could help revive them a bit too. Spider-Man's always a winning character. He could help revive them. He and Johnny Storm were best friends forever, and they had some great misadventures themselves together. Sometimes their own single comics and everything. Those were always good. They've got a great friendship. And right now with Spider-Man being forgotten by everybody, he needs friends. So having Johnny, maybe a cast of Johnny who's the least passable around Peter's age could help. Yeah. So there's possibilities, but what will they do it? We got Hugh Jackman in classic costume. I was so excited when I saw that picture. But I don't know. The question is, what will they do? I think it could give it a second wind. I don't think it's going to last another 15 years, second wind, but maybe give it another 5 years, maybe, of good comic book movies if they do it right, or if this is dead on arrival.
I think the weird thing is I was so ready for Fox to lose the rights to X-Men and Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I hated what they did at the end with the properties. Dark Phoenix, one of the greatest comic book storylines ever, was adapted twice into an awful movie by Fox.
They messed it up twice.
And Fox, I'll give Fox credit. I think some of their Wolverine films, especially The Wolverine, the one where he's in Japan, I thought was excellent.
I love that one.
I thought Logan was great. I thought the original X-Men and X2, X-Men United with that brilliant Nightcrawler scene at the beginning.
Oh, sweet.
Exceptional. My problem is now with where the MCU is, I don't know that I trust the MCU at all anymore.
I know.
I think the thing that I've seen the MCU do, and you can see this kind of in the credits of some of the early movies. We talked in the previous one about the first Thor movie with Branagh and how he did. But one of the story consultants on that was J. Michael Straczynski, who wrote an excellent run on Thor and is a comic book guy who wrote a lot of Spider-Man stuff. You look now, they're hiring writers from Rick and Morty to come in and write these movies. They're hiring writers off the Jimmy Kimmel Live show to come and make these movies. I mean, the new Ant-Man film, I believe, was Jeff Loveness, who has done some comic book work, but I believe his foundation was a writer for Jimmy Kimmel. You're not bringing in the creative minds of these comic book folks anymore. And so the thing is, I think with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, what I worry about is when you watch an Ant-Man movie, I'm a little bit angry, but it's Ant-Man. I can't muster that much anger about it. When you're dealing with the X-Men, when you're dealing with the Fantastic Four, not only for their historical place in terms of Marvel Comics and how much those meant to people like Stan Lee and how much those things set the standard for what became Marvel Comics. You also have legions of fans. That X-Men, and Lorna mentioned the reboot, that X-Men cartoon on TV in the 90s, for me as a kid who was born in the late 80s, that was really how I got into Marvel Comics. I'd always loved DC. That X-Men one was the gateway for me to love Marvel Comics. I remember watching that and going, I need to be reading whatever the heck this is and get more of it.
Yeah.
I think if they come in with the attitude they've had lately, and Marvel to me, post Endgame, they kind of seem like a basketball player who's made 4 or 5 shots in a row. And then it's like a heat check shot where you can tell, like, well, I'm making anything. I might as well just throw up this shot. It kind of seems like that's how Marvel is. I hope the box office results are humbling them a bit. And they go back and go, you know what? We need to go back to the source material. We need to cast great people. And the thing is, if they do this right, the X-Men will accomplish everything Marvel says they want to do.
Yes.
One of the things they've talked about is we want to add diversity, which I think is a good aim. They want to add strong female characters.
Yes.
Okay. Storm, Rogue, Jean Grey, Psylocke. You run through Emma Frost, Kitty Pryde, Jubilee. You have tons, right? You have great characters like Bishop, who can bring a futuristic element into things. You have Beast, you have Nightcrawler. Not only a diversity in terms of the characters, but the superpowers that will show. Because we have no one who does the teleporting thing like Nightcrawler, or the ice powers like Iceman, or the optic blasts of Cyclops. There's such a cool team dynamic to the X-Men. If they do that right, if they can do what they did for the Avengers, for the X-Men, especially because one of the things Fox bungled, the greatest X-Men storylines, I think, Apocalypse, Onslaught, all that stuff, were great. They haven't touched those. And if Fox did, they botched it badly. I don't know how they made Oscar Isaac one of the most entertaining actors absolutely unwatchable as Apocalypse, but they did. And so there's a ton of story ideas. I think the X-Men themselves could be a new Avengers saga for 15 years. but only if they do it right.
Yes.
And the weirdest thing is, my big worry is I don't know that they're going to do it right. And I feel like that dang Disney Plus thing is going to exist. And so it'll be, here's 3 X-Men. The other 2 are in a 6-issue miniseries on Disney Plus. And it's like, I hope they kind of get, man, you need the big screen treatment. You need these characters done right. Even if you just stick to accuracy, you'll actually accomplish all the goals you've been saying you want to do.
I think they're the right properties to reboot. I'm just, I just wish they were coming out next year instead of
I do too.
2-3 years away. Because
I'm already a little worried. The biggest thing I'm worried about with the X-Men, they changed Kamala Khan and made her a mutant. And they played the classic X-Men theme behind her like intro in one of the movies. And then of course, because there's sometimes synergy, they've made Kamala Khan a mutant in the comics now. And so I'm worried our X-Men movie that should be Storm and Cyclops and Beast and Jean Grey and Wolverine is going to be like Kamala Khan with maybe one of them. And I'm worried. I'm hoping the box office and what they're seeing worries them.
Yeah.
Man, I gotta say, my trust in Marvel to do the right thing anymore has gone down immensely. They've kind of gone down to DCEU levels.
Yeah.
Even when DC cuts a great trailer now, I go into the theater like, please don't be as bad as I think it's going to be. And Marvel, to me, they're kind of in that level where I hope I'm wrong on a lot of this, but I don't know. We'll see, but I think that they do, like Mike said, I think they've got the right characters because, man,
yes,
Fantastic Four and the X-Men is a gold mine of characters.
Setup for like
stories.
Like I said, the next 15 years.
And they all have great ties to all the other Marvel universe. Fantastic Four and X-Men have had some of the best crossover arcs ever. I mean, they introduced some of the, actually, if you think about it, some of the best villains and greatest things ever happened was started through the Fantastic Four series. Galactus, Doctor Doom. And we know we are getting Doctor Doom, especially with all the issues that are happening with the Kang actor. Yep. They're saying they're going to go ahead with Doctor Doom, which I thought they should have gone ahead with Doctor Doom much sooner anyway.
One from the start anyway.
Yeah. I think Kang should have come a little bit later. I don't think he should have ever preceded Doctor Doom.
No.
But still, Doctor Doom is on the horizon, and his greatest rivals of all time is the Fantastic Four, well, namely Reed Richards.
Yeah.
But so great potential, great connections to the other characters, to the other parts of the universe. I mean, X-Men versus Avengers, and like I said, Fantastic Four, best friends with Spider-Man. Spider-Man's broke. He's always going to the Baxter building for help.
When you've even had Spider-Man integrate with the X-Men quite a bit, they've had runs where he's been like helping.
Yes,
it's true.
Oh yeah,
he partners up with Wolverine quite often.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of great connections you can use with it. Just like you said, will they do it right? Please don't ruin this.
I worry about is, one of the worst things, and that kind of, I know we're running on time here, but like Kang to me was the weirdest thing, and this is where I'm worried about Doom. Kang was so weird in that one of the things I love that they did with Thanos, and I think they actually took Thanos and made him better than the comics, and that they made Thanos an understandable. So he had a goal that you could kind of understand what he's doing. Yes, he was the bad guy. No, you don't root for him, but his stated goal was not just I'm a mustache twirling guy who's bad. What was so weird with Kang was after I really thought with Kang. After Endgame had the Avengers go back and kind of violate the timeline to fix things. I thought the perfect thing could have been you integrate Kang and have Kang runs like the TVA and he's offended that the Avengers broke the timeline. And you could have even had that the Avengers going back maybe altered something that affected Kang's life and that's why he's targeting him. The fact that they did nothing with that and it kind of ended up getting killed by Loki's female multiverse replacement in one series and murdered by ants in the other. This is allegedly the Thanos level villain you were building to. I worry with Doom because one of the things that made Thanos so effective was they were patient. It was an end credit scene here. It was a really cool appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy. Another end credit scene. Kind of a threat, and the way they built to him and you knew he was coming, like when the trailers came out and there's the I am inevitable kind of thing. And I think it was like, you can run from it, whatever. Destiny arrives, all the same. It was so beautifully built up. I just don't know if they'll do that for Doom because one, I don't know that they have the money to wait that long. And two, with the way the writers are, a lot of those writers that wrote those great films are gone. Like they've moved on. The Russos are no longer a part of Marvel directing stuff. They're doing their own thing with Netflix, and James Gunn is clearly with DC. I just worry, like with these great characters, will they have not only the ability to write them, but the patience to do it the right way? Because we've seen what happens when you rush. It's called the DCEU.
Yes.
And that did not work. And so I do worry with Marvel. They've got all these great stories, but will they have the patience to go, okay, we need to give you little pieces at a time and show some restraint? But we'll certainly see. Let us know what you guys think below in the comments. Do you think Marvel has problems? Do you think Marvel can be saved? Do you think these franchises can be revived with the great characters of X-Men and Fantastic Four? Mike and Lauren, thank you guys for your time as always with us, and we will see you guys in the next video.